Really want to know I was gone so long? I had to grow this beard, baby. Look at those grays. Something that's impressive. Takes a full year to get that many grays. Go look at the last video and compare. Whew! Hey everybody, Mac here. I'm back! I apologize for my extended absence. I have been gone for about a year, and I don't have a really good excuse, but I'll try to provide one anyway. I have a job that takes up a lot of time, and the channel got away from me. I do have to thank a few people for my return, specifically my family, really. Fran and Brad for finding my old videos and saying, you're pretty good at this and you should do more. So thanks, guys. I really do appreciate that. And my nephews, Liam and Elijah, who every time I see them, just ask me, why don't you do more videos? Well, guys, more videos. Mac is back. And man, I'm ready. So it's January of 2020. It's a new decade. And maybe at some point I will do my favorite movies of the past decade. But that's not for today. What I'm doing today is I'm going to share with you guys my top 10 films of 2019. It was a great year, and I know I seem to say that every year, but I do believe that 2019 was an excellent year, because in addition to my top 10, I have 5 honorable mentions as well. And I had to cut those down because there was just a lot of really good stuff this year, guys. All right, a few things I'd like to get out of the way before we get started. First, I have not seen every movie that came out in 2019. I just don't have that much time, guys. I apologize. But there are some movies that I still have not seen that I really want to see. Uncut Gems, Marriage Story, and Parasite. Dude, I want to see Parasite really bad. And if they end up changing this list at all, I'll let you know. But those are definitely movies I want to check out. Second, I'm not a critic. I don't get paid to write reviews or paid to go see movies, all right? So this is just my personal opinion. You're going to see stuff on this list that you will not see on other top 10 lists. Third, and almost most importantly, is YouTube channel. So make sure you like, share, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your family. You want to learn something about some of these movies that came out last year? Watch this video with this really endearing, charming dude. That's me, all right? Any word you can spread, I greatly appreciate, guys. So let's jump into it, guys. Here are my honorable mentions for 2019. My first honorable mention is Ford versus Ferrari. An awesome, well-crafted flick about Ford trying to dethrone Ferrari as the kings of the Le Mans 24-hour race. Great performances, specifically Matt Damon and Christian Bale. And technically the movie is just like unbelievable to look at. Like just very much cemented in its time period and really impressive at that. Fell a little flat from an emotional standpoint for me, which is why I didn't make my top 10, but still very good. Definitely worth a watch. Next in my honorable mentions is Just Mercy. This is the true story of death row lawyer Brian Stevenson, played by Michael B. Jordan, who is always amazing and, of course, is in this movie as well. Jamie Foxx reminds us that he is still one of the greatest actors working today. Just a phenomenal performance. And probably the best performance I thought in the movie was this lesser-known actor named Rob Morgan. Any scene that he was in just were heart-wrenching, gut-wrenching. Actually brought me to tears. The movie does suffer from being a cliche courtroom drama. It's basically To Kill a Mockingbird again. Shouldn't keep you away from seeing it. It's still very good. My next honorable mention, yet another based on a true story, is Dark Waters. Now this is about a corporate lawyer taking on the DuPont industry for their creation of Teflon and how it poisoned some local water supplies, and then kind of goes even further. Guys, this is probably the scariest movie I saw all year. Not because it wasn't a horror movie, but like the real-life implications of what happened is petrifying. And everybody owes themselves to watch this movie at least once, because I don't think you're going to want to watch it again. It does not have a lot of replay value, but definitely worth at least one watch. Next up is 1917, the World War I epic directed by Sam Mendes. From a technical standpoint, this movie is unreal. Roger Deakins' cinematography, Sam Mendes' direction, looks like it was all done in one take. It is a technical masterpiece. With all of that on display, I, again, had no emotional attachment to this movie, and it left me feeling flat, and I can't totally explain why. I just didn't love it. And my last honorable mention is Avengers Endgame, the truly epic conclusion to this 11-year Marvel journey that we have been on. This was a fan's dream. I was cheering and whooping and hollering and crying. All the emotions it wanted to elicit from me, it did. And it's a great end to that first 11 years of Marvel. I love saying like the first 11 years. It's been 11 years of Marvel movies. I'm saying the first 11 years. Whew! All right. Well, that brings me to the top 10 here, guys. So let's get right to it. So number 10 on my list is a movie called The Lighthouse, directed by Robert Eggers. He, a few years back, did a spellbindingly fantastic horror movie called The Witch. The crafts of the movie is amazing. It's shot in black and white in 4:3 aspect ratio, so it kind of looks like a television screen. And all takes place on this one island. And it's all Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe who give career performances. They are so good in this film. Somewhere about maybe a third of the way through, the supernatural kicks in, and then the movie basically hands it to you and says, what do you think? Are they really going crazy? Or is all of this actually happening? Is this in their minds or is this for real? It does it without being too weird and meandering. It's very focused, but it really makes you work to figure out what the meaning of this movie is. And you're going to want to work at it, all right? While you're sitting there mesmerized by these performances, you want to work. And I haven't been this challenged by a movie in a while. And I really want to thank Robert Eggers for doing it because it's not something I thought I wanted, but gosh darn, I'm cool with it, man. So The Lighthouse, if you're up for it, go for it. Next on the top 10 list is Rocketman, the fantasy biopic about Sir Elton John, one of the greatest living entertainers. I say fantasy because this is clearly a fantasy. It's a musical, which was such a good idea to make this a musical because all of Elton John's songs all work really well. Like all the content and the lyrics really fit. And it's impressive to see it all come together. It's like just a wildly imaginative take on Elton's life. Taron Egerton as Elton John, just unbelievable. If you thought Bohemian Rhapsody was good, you owe it to yourself to see this because this, I truly believe, is a far better film with a far better lead performance. And if this movie came out in November as opposed to May, guarantee you'd see Taron Egerton getting an Academy Award nomination. But I'll keep my fingers crossed anyway. So, Rocketman, great movie. Next on my list is Clint Eastwood's Richard Jewell. This is a biopic about Richard Jewell. He was a security guard at the bombing at the Atlanta Olympics. I didn't think Clint Eastwood had any good movies left in him. He's like pushing 90, and his last few have been clunkers. But man, I was wrong. This is a great movie, man. He spent the first half hour just building suspense up to that bomb. And then once everything just goes off the rails, it's really well done. Obviously, this is, it's based on a true story, and I don't know how much is true and how much isn't. It shows that Richard, the title character, is not the greatest person, and that's kind of how it all goes off the rails. I gotta applaud the performances here. Sam Rockwell is great, as always. Kathy Bates was just unbelievable as Richard's mom, and I gotta give props to Paul Walter Hauser, who played Richard. Just his vulnerability and his believability, even though he does make a lot of mistakes, you're always rooting for him. You never root against him. He's just wonderful. And the chemistry between him and Sam Rockwell is fantastic. I really highly recommend this one, guys. Next on my list is the best horror movie of the year, Doctor Sleep. This movie had a lot to do. It had to take The Shining, which is regarded as one of the greatest horror movies of all time, and the book Doctor Sleep, and meld them together into something that would not only satisfy fans of The Shining, but fans of the book Doctor Sleep. And Stephen King himself, as hopefully you know, he is not the biggest fan of Kubrick's version of The Shining. But the director, Mike Flanagan, who, by the way, one of the best horror directors working in film today, melds them together in what I have to say is probably one of the most brutal and unflinching horror movies I've seen in a while. This thing pulls no punches, man. It is hard to watch. And you know what? If you're a horror movie fan, you kind of want something like that. All of the Stephen King elements, the horror elements, plus, the character building elements, they all work together. Ewan McGregor is fantastic as Danny Torrance. And the climax, although it's changed completely from the book, works so gosh darn well. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but if you have any interest in horror movies at all, you owe it to yourself to see this. Not a lot of people did, but it's so good, man. Doctor Sleep, I totally see Doctor Sleep. Next on the list is A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. Now, a lot of people think that this is a biopic about Fred Rogers starring Tom Hanks, which, if that were the case, is that not the best casting in the world? Yeah, it is. It's totally the best casting in the world. But that's not what it is. This follows a journalist who is actually reluctantly given a job to write about Fred Rogers. Throughout meeting Fred and talking to him, he learns a lot about himself and tries to mend his fractured family relationships. Stuff that sounds a little bit cliche, but is so elevated by the great direction in this movie and the wonderful performances by Matthew Rhys, who plays the lead, and of course Tom Hanks as Fred Rogers. Doesn't look like Fred Rogers, but he embodies what that man was about so well. It was like kind of weird sometimes watching it on screen. Just a wonderful movie. It's a joyous film. You leave feeling like you've spent some time with Fred Rogers. And I'm going to tell you right now, there will never be anything wrong with that, because that man was one of the true gifts that we have been given. And God, I just love Mr. Rogers, and I love this movie. All right, we are now in the top 5 of 2019, and my number 5 is, can't believe I'm saying this, Toy Story 4. Wow! Wow! If you had told me in 2000, the beginning of the decade, in 2010, that I'd be putting Toy Story 4 on one of my top 10 lists, I'd be like, nobody's making Toy Story 4. But I'm so glad they made Toy Story 4. Each Toy Story movie has been like a masterpiece in their own right. And they all, although they take elements from other types of film, like, Toy Story 3 was clearly like based off like a prison movie. They're all their own unique story, and they're all so good. And it shows that these wonderful characters who we have been with for 25 years still have life in them and still have a story in them. And it's such a great feeling to watch this movie and to see something so new and so wonderful happen to these characters that it brings me to tears again for a 4th time. 4 for 4, I'm crying like a baby watching these movies. I would go out and saying this is probably the best franchise of all time. There's like nary a flaw in any of these movies. So if you haven't seen it, man, Toy Story 4 is unbelievable. All right, next up is probably the most controversial movie of the year, and that would be Joker. I don't think any of us were asking for a Joker origin story. One of the coolest things about Joker in the comic books is that he doesn't really have an origin. That's what makes him so cryptic and evil and frankly scary. But I'm going to tell you, if he had an origin, this should be it. Because, man, it's great. Because not only does it tell the origin of this classic character, but it's very, very timely, talking about mental health, specifically like how people with mental health issues are ignored. Obviously, it takes it to a little bit more of an extreme, with the results, but wow, what results, man. What a powerful really spellbinding movie led by the amazing Joaquin Phoenix. My goodness. One of the best performances of the year. I could see him taking the Academy Award. It's really tough to watch. I have talked to people that have actually had panic attacks watching this movie, but have still said, I'm glad I saw it, because for this movie to come out in this day and age, and for it to be a comic book movie, and for it to make over $1 billion, wow, Joker is great. Number 3 is Martin Scorsese's The Irishman. It has 3 of the best performances of the year, maybe the past decade, in the veteran masters, Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, Joe Pesci. They're all mesmerizing in this movie. This is a little bit more of a restrained Martin Scorsese. If you're looking for the frantic pacing of Goodfellas and The Departed, you're not going to get it. What you get is a very deliberate and really intricately woven tale of Robert De Niro's character and his journey throughout the years as a mob enforcer, as a bodyguard. It is, I'll put it to you this way. It's 3.5 hours long. I meant to watch it in parts. I ended up watching it all in one chunk and totally forgot to put my kids to bed. Sorry. It's that good. Martin Scorsese and all these guys who are, in their golden years are still making masterpieces like this. Man, I can't recommend it enough. My number 2 film of the year totally came out of left field. Smacked me in the face, man. Greta Gerwig's Little Women. I am not familiar with the source material, and I may have seen bits and pieces of the 1990s version of this movie. What a great way to direct this movie. She does time jumps between what you would call like present day and past in this particular, story. And the present day is all kind of gloomy and gray, but the past is all bright and vibrant colors. The dialogue is really clever without being pretentious. It's very snappy and, quick paced without being annoying. The performances sell every line, specifically Saoirse Ronan and Florence Pugh. They're fantastic. But everybody across the board is great. Timothée Chalamet, also great in this movie. It's just so effortlessly done and so enjoyable. It was seriously a joyous time at the movies. I love this movie. I didn't expect it. I think that's what made it even better. Little Women was so good. You've really got to go see it. All right, we've come to it. My favorite film of 2019. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Quentin Tarantino does it again. Much like Pixar, this dude just keeps cranking out masterpieces. First off, the look of it. The art direction, the recreation of 1969 Hollywood is flawless. From the storefronts, to the music, to the costumes, to the cars, you'll think you are there. It is so gorgeous to look at. Then you have the actors who are performing Tarantino's wonderful, wonderful dialogue just effortlessly. Leonardo DiCaprio, obviously one of the best actors of our time. Brad Pitt, ditto. Margot Robbie, who doesn't have as much to do as them, but is perfect as Sharon Tate. It follows Leonardo DiCaprio's character, who's kind of like an actor who's on the down and out. Him just rediscovering that he still has some life left in him. A lot of the time is spent in him filming on the set of Lancer, the actual TV show, and their long stretches of dialogue. At one point, we're literally just watching the show get shot, and it's mesmerizing because all these actors are selling these parts so wonderfully. There's one part, probably my favorite part of the movie, like Brad Pitt is like fixing something on Leonardo DiCaprio's roof and has a flashback that lasts literally 15 minutes. And then it just pops back to him and it's just like, yeah, okay. It's hilarious. And nobody could get away with that and do it so flawlessly except Quentin Tarantino. Not to mention the fact the whole movie, with this great dialogue and this wonderful setting, is set on in the backdrop of the Manson murders with Sharon Tate. Quentin Tarantino is a big fan of revisionist history. If you've seen Inglourious Basterds, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And he loves it here too, and that's all I'm going to say. I am not giving anything else away because you need to watch this movie. But it was 2 hours and 45 minutes. I could watch it for another 2 hours and 45 minutes. I loved every minute of this movie. I love Quentin Tarantino. This man changed the way I watch movies, and this movie is no exception. It is another masterpiece on his long list of masterpieces. So, my favorite movie of 2019, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. All right, guys, so that wraps it up. That's my top 10 plus 5 honorable mentions for you of 2019. So what'd you think? Do you agree with my choices? Do you disagree? Please put that stuff in the comments. This agreements and disagreements, specifically disagreements, are what make this interesting. We're all going to like different things. That's what makes it fun, all right? We're all allowed to like and dislike things. Talk about it for me. Share me some comments. Maybe I'll throw you up on the next episode. Maybe I'll make you famous. I'll make you YouTube famous, okay? Next time I see you guys, which will be soon, because here's the deal. If I had a top 10 list, the best movies of 2019, I'm probably sitting on the worst movies of 2019. And oh yeah, I am. So that's what I'll be bringing you guys next time. And also stay tuned. I got a bunch of things planned, specifically the Academy Awards. Those nominations are going to be out soon. Actually, as of this video, I think those nominations are out. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys at the next video. But until then, thank you for returning with me. I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to have all of you back watching. And hopefully I'll be sticking around for a lot longer this time. That being said, I am out.